It's recap time. Welcome to the One More Recap. Today I'll be explaining a movie called All Hail, released in the year 2022. The film starts with home video footage featuring a family enjoying their picnic. Everything changes exceptionally when lightning strikes. The scene shifts to the introduction of Miguel Flores. The popular weatherman of the city has never been wrong about his prediction. We get to see his popular rapport among the local residents, who are more than happy to see him. One of the passers-by asks Miguel about the weather today, as his dog will be sleeping outside due to renovation. Miguel reiterates that the weather will be great and there is no problem. The weatherman gets in a cab and prepares himself for a new shoot. This is when his friend informs him that he will have to adjust to a new age influencer. Even though he is double-minded about the collaboration, he gives in to the idea. Miguel gets his makeup done and presents his show. He is back into his showman spirit and provides his prediction related to the weather. He states that there will be mild wind blowing and there is nothing to worry about. He goes back home and ends a tiring day of broadcasting. Later on, everything happens contrary to what Miguel had predicted. The city is taken over by a harsh hailstorm, and this leads to many locals suffering damages, including trees being uprooted and taxicabs dented. Everyone who was impressed by Miguel and his spot-on predictions now ends up resenting him. They think the popular weatherman has lost his credibility and there is no point in trusting him now. Even Miguel himself feels the heat and remains worried about the prediction gone wrong. Miguel tries to reach his work location but has to confront the locals. The same people who praised him for his accuracy now express their disdain for him. Somehow, the weatherman gets in the cab and starts his journey. Inside the cab, Miguel reads all the tweets and social media videos. He understands there is an online rage against him, and people are questioning his credibility. The cab driver keeps giving him updates about the location, but Miguel seems to be totally out of the zone. When Miguel reaches back to the office, he realizes that his producer is not interested in continuing the show. The producer explains that his image is completely ruined, and social media wants to cancel him. At first, Miguel is confused about the outcome. He is surprised that, after decades in the business, he was removed from his show because of a single mistake. He is advised to take a vacation to Brazil and remain there. During the night, Miguel reaches home and watches the new show along with his friend. The show is overtaken by the social media influencer, and a sad Miguel watches her perform. Suddenly, someone throws a stuffed toy at Miguel's window. This leaves everyone in shock. The next morning, multiple protesters stood in front of Miguel's house. They demand action against him. Miguel decides to leave before the situation gets worse. With the help of his assistant, he takes a plane to Brazil. The assistant securely gets him out of the building, while Miguel hides in the trunk of his car. Meanwhile, Miguel also takes his pet fish with him. As soon as Miguel gets on a flight, he is scolded by his fellow passengers. He has demanded credibility for his actions. Just when he thinks he has escaped his worst nightmare, he is reminded about his blunder again. When Miguel lands on the ground, he takes a cab to his daughter's place. He makes the excuse that he is there to meet her after a long time, but his daughter reminds him that she knows what happened on his show and that he is here as a form of escape. At first, her daughter is reluctant to let her dad stay. She thinks it will be better if he stays at a hotel, as his house is a mess. This is when Miguel blurts out the truth that he can't stay at the hotel after the incident. At last, Miguel is allowed to stay. As soon as he gets inside, he places his pet fish in safety and starts to remember the memories with his daughter. At night, Miguel prepares dinner while looking at the news that keeps on criticizing his act. When his daughter arrives, he mentions that he has cooked dinner and that she doesn't need to go out. They both finish their meal and start to engage in a conversation. This is when Carla, his daughter, reminds him of their broken bond over the years. The conversation ends abruptly. Meanwhile, back at Miguel's home, a cab driver, whose car was destroyed due to the hailstorm, arrives to confront the weatherman. He is updated about Miguel's new location and thereby leaves to meet with Miguel again. Back at the vacation house, Miguel receives a call from his assistant, who informs him about the showmakers getting rid of his stuff. Later on, he receives a call from her daughter, who tells him that she needs him at the hospital. Miguel reaches the hospital and gets to know that one of Kara's patients, a little kid, is a big fan of his dad. The popular weatherman arrives at the scene and meets the kid with much enthusiasm. On their way back, Miguel talks with Carla about his attitude toward life. He also informs her that he intends to stay a little longer in the city and that he doesn't care about his old job. Meanwhile, Carla states he needs the house for herself for a couple of hours, and there he is free to roam in the city until then. Even though Miguel is not sure about roaming in the city due to the latest incident, he decides to go with the plan. He goes into a bar and meets a strange man. It turns out that the strange man is also a forecaster. The old man gives a prediction for rain and states that it will rain at 7:14. Miguel is a bit surprised to hear the exact prediction and leaves the bar. When he reaches back to Carla's house, he finds everyone in an eccentric state. When Miguel questions Carla about the state of the house in his absence, Carla reminds him that she doesn't need an explanation. Since it is her house, she can do whatever she wants. It is then that the conversation goes back to the deaths of Carla's mother and Miguel's wife. It is revealed that it was Miguel's wife, who had died due to a lightning strike, and that she was the reason why Miguel became a precision-obsessed weatherman. Carla acknowledges that as the reason for his success, he just needed some time for himself, which is why he moved to a different place. He did insist on Carla living with him, but it was of no use, as Carla preferred her independent life. The duo of father and daughter reconcile to some extent over this discussion and decide to call it a night. The next morning they meet again, and Carla invites Miguel for dinner at the hospital. During the evening, Miguel notices the thunder showers. He realizes that the old man in the bar was absolutely spot on. It started raining at exactly 7:14. This leaves Miguel in search of the strange old man, as he does not understand his method. Miguel reaches the same bar and starts to inquire about the man. The man informs him that he lives somewhere near the mountains. Although his exact location is unknown, Miguel takes a drive to the mountains and meets with the man. He realizes that there is no electricity in the place, and yet the man got his prediction right. This leaves him even more amazed. When the man inquires why Miguel is present here, he states his reason. The weatherman becomes eager to know how he got the exact time of rain. The old man calls him inside his house and engages in a conversation. The old man states that he believes in the traditional way of life. This is when Miguel suggests that they can have a show together, where he forecasts the weather. The man appears to be a little angry with that proposition, but she tries to reason with Miguel when he expresses his love for forecasting the weather. The scene shifts back to the frustrated taxi driver, who remains adamant about getting back to Miguel and confronting him with his wrong prediction. Back in the mountains, Miguel gets to know that there will be a heavy hailstorm. The old man advises him to go back to his city and inform everyone before it's too late. Miguel immediately books a flight back home and decides to warn everyone in time. When Carla arrives, she is confused because Miguel is leaving in a hurry. Miguel tells her that he is leaving because there will be a heavy storm in the city at exactly 11:07. This time around, Carla understands but remains double-minded. This is when Miguel is confronted by the crazy cab driver fan, who came all the way from the city to confront him. He threatens Miguel with a fire extinguisher, but the latter handles the situation very well. Miguel convinces him to return home, warn everyone in time, and redeem himself. In the next scene, Carla leaves Miguel at the airport. The duo shared a moment of reconciliation. Back in the city, when Miguel arrives at the studio, he faces multiple obstacles to convince everyone about his forecast. At last, Miguel enters the live taping of the show and remains hidden in the background. Eventually, he comes out and warns everyone about the biggest storm. He mentions that it will arrive at 11:07, and they all need to get to safety. The producer finally interrupts the show and warns him of the consequences. He mentions that if there is no storm at the time mentioned, he will face the wrath of it. Miguel starts to walk around the city and waits for the storm. At last, he is proven right, as there is a mighty hailstorm at the precise time. The extent of the storm is at such a level that it leaves everyone astonished. At first, Miguel is left to hide inside a building. Later on, he makes it alive on the outside. Even the taxi driver returns home in time and saves his family from the hailstorm. This makes him redeem his image in front of his wife. In the end, Miguel is honored for his accurate forecast. When the popular weatherman receives his award, he discloses his secret. He mentions that it was an old man in the mountains who helped him with the precise forecast. At last, a bunch of media vans gathered around the old man's home in the mountains. The old man is visibly upset with Miguel, but combs his hair as he readies himself for the interview. The screen fades to black. I hope you liked this movie recap. Please comment down on what you liked about this movie and what scene you liked, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.